Chosen ones, stop thinking you're too sensitive. You're spiritually tuned in. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt something was off, even though no one said a word? Maybe your chest got tight, your thoughts started racing, or your energy dropped for no reason. And then later, someone tells you there had just been an argument in that very room. You didn't see it. No one told you. But you felt it. And maybe your whole life, people have told you that you're too sensitive, too emotional, too intense. They made you feel like your sensitivity was a burden, like something you needed to fix. But what if I told you that your sensitivity isn't a flaw, it's your gift? That you're not crazy, dramatic, or weak. You're spiritually tuned in, and that changes everything. We live in a world that celebrates numbness, that praises people who can push through pain, ignore their emotions, and stay strong no matter what. But strength without feeling is not power, it's denial. And we, the chosen ones, weren't built to numb out. We were built to feel, to sense, to perceive what others miss. Our sensitivity is not a glitch in the system. It's a higher form of intelligence. It's spiritual awareness.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
You see, the veil between the visible and the invisible is thin for us, thinner than it is for most. While others are navigating reality through logic and habits, we're navigating through vibration and frequency. That means we pick up on energy shifts, emotional undercurrents, and spiritual truths that others are completely blind to. And yes, it can be overwhelming. Yes, it can make us feel alienated, confused, even broken. But the truth is, we are not broken. We are just awake. Being spiritually tuned in means you're living in a world that often doesn't know how to receive you. That's why it hurts when people dismiss your feelings or tell you to stop overthinking. Because it's not overthinking, it's overfeeling. And there's a difference. You're not imagining things. You're receiving more data than others. Emotional data, energetic data, intuitive data. You're like a human antenna, picking up signals that most people can't even detect. And instead of being honored, you're often misunderstood. But I'm here to tell you, that ends now. Let's be real. Being spiritually sensitive isn't always glamorous. It doesn't always feel like a superpower. Sometimes it feels like a curse. Like when you walk into a crowded place and feel drained within minutes. Or when someone says something seemingly harmless, but it hits you like a dagger because you feel the energy behind their words. Or when you try to explain what you're sensing and people look at you like you're speaking another language. That's because you're speaking the language of energy, of spirit, of soul, and not everyone is ready to hear it. But just because they can't hear it doesn't mean it's not real. In fact, the very reason you feel so much is because you were chosen to carry a deeper frequency, a frequency that bridges the seen and unseen. A frequency that brings healing, clarity, and truth into a world that's addicted to noise and distraction. Let me ask you something. Why do you think you cry when others don't? Why do you feel other people's pain like it's your own? Why can you walk away from a conversation and carry the emotional residue of it for days? That's not weakness. That's resonance. That's your soul telling you you're here for more than just survival. You're here to transmute. You're here to absorb, process, and lift. Like a filter for collective pain, like a tuning fork for divine wisdom. But here's the thing no one tells you. Just because you're tuned in doesn't mean you have to carry everything. That's the trap. We feel so much, we start believing we're responsible for it all. We internalize other people's anger, sadness, fear, and assume it's our job to fix it, to hold it, to heal it. But that's not your job. Your job is to feel, yes, but also to discern, and to know what's yours and what's not, and to develop energetic boundaries, just like physical ones. Because if you don't, you'll drown in emotions that were never yours to begin with. Sensitivity without discernment leads to emotional chaos. But sensitivity with spiritual clarity, that's power. That's mastery. Imagine this. What if your tears are not signs of weakness, but indicators of truth? What if your anxiety is not a problem, but a compass pointing you toward misalignment? What if your emotional overwhelm is not random, but a signal that the energy around you is distorted, and you're the one who can feel it because you were designed to? Chosen one, you need to stop apologizing for being affected. You need to stop shrinking your light to make others comfortable. You need to stop pretending you're okay with things that feel deeply wrong to your spirit. The world needs your sensitivity. Desperately. We are drowning in a sea of numbness, and your ability to feel is the lighthouse. But here's the key: you must learn how to protect your light while still letting it shine. That means practicing energy hygiene. Just like you brush your teeth and wash your body, you need to cleanse your energy daily. That might mean grounding in nature, meditating, journaling, or using breathwork to release tension. It might mean saying no more often. It might mean walking away from people who drain you, even if you love them. Because love without boundaries is not love. It's self-abandonment. And you've abandoned yourself long enough. So now, I invite you to reclaim your sensitivity, but to stop seeing it as a cross to bear and start seeing it as a sacred tool. You don't need to toughen up. You need to tune in deeper. You don't need to become less sensitive. You need to become more conscious of how to use it. Because when you do, you don't just survive this world. You change it. Now I ask you, what would your life look like if you stopped resisting your sensitivity and started honoring it as your greatest gift? Your nervous system is not broken, it's a spiritual instrument. But you've probably spent most of your life thinking something was wrong with you. That your anxiety meant you were unstable. That your sensitivity to noise, people, emotions, even light, was a flaw. That the way your energy dips in crowded places or surges in sacred silence made you fragile. But what if I told you that your nervous system isn't malfunctioning, it's functioning at a higher calibration than most? What if your body isn't betraying you, but trying to communicate with you in a language most have forgotten how to speak? Let's get something clear. Your nervous system is not just a biological structure. It's not just a network of nerves firing signals for fight or flight. It's a spiritual interface, a divine receiver. And when you are a chosen one, when your soul is on a higher mission, your nervous system becomes your most sacred tool. It's tuned to subtle frequencies. It picks up on the unspoken, the unseen, the energetic undercurrents beneath every interaction. You are not too reactive, you are responsive to truth, to misalignment, to energy. You feel when someone's words don't match their energy. You feel when a space carries trauma, even if it looks beautiful on the outside. You pick up on collective pain, ancestral grief, the unspoken sadness behind someone's smile. And your body reacts not because it's weak, but because it's honest. Because it refuses to lie. That tightness in your chest, that's not random. It's your body saying, something here is off. That restlessness in your legs, that's energy moving through you that hasn't been grounded yet. The fatigue you feel after certain people leave, that's your system telling you they're not in alignment with your frequency. But no one teaches us this. Instead, we're taught to suppress, to medicate, to disconnect. We're told to calm down, stop being dramatic, or just get over it. But how can you get over something that your soul is still trying to process? You don't need to shut down your nervous system. You need to learn its language. You need to become fluent in the signals your body is sending you, because those signals are sacred messages from your higher self. Think about this. If your body is a temple, then your nervous system is the bell that rings when something sacred or dangerous is near. It's not there to torment you. It's there to guide you. But we've been so conditioned to fear our own bodies, to distrust our emotions, that we've lost our connection to this internal compass. And so we wander, we override, we force ourselves to stay in rooms that drain us, to stay in relationships that suffocate us, and to stay in careers that silence our spirit, all because we're afraid of what our body is trying to say. But the chosen ones are being called back to embodiment, back to listening, back to the divine intelligence that lives in the cells, the breath, the heartbeat. You were never meant to live only in your head. You were meant to live in your whole being. And when you begin to honor your nervous system as a spiritual instrument, everything changes. You start to realize that your triggers are not enemies, they are invitations. But they point you toward places within that still need love, attention, healing. You start to see that your overwhelm is not weakness, it's a sign that you've been absorbing too much without enough release. You start to understand that your sensitivity to sound, light, or crowds isn't neurosis, it's your system saying, I need stillness. I need spaciousness. I need nature. And as you begin to trust your body, you begin to trust yourself. You no longer need external validation to know what's true. Your body becomes your truth detector. Your energy becomes your compass. And that's when you step into real power. Not the kind that dominates, but the kind that discerns. The kind that walks into a room and instantly knows where to sit, who to talk to, who to avoid, not out of judgment, but out of deep energetic wisdom. So I ask you, when was the last time you truly listened to your body without trying to fix it? Without trying to silence it? Without trying to make it fit into someone else's expectations? Because maybe, just maybe, your body isn't breaking down. Maybe it's breaking through. Maybe you're shaking, your tears, your heart pounding. Maybe that's all spirit trying to move through you in the only way it knows how. You are not too sensitive. You are spiritually attuned. You are not broken. You are becoming. The energetic cost of fitting in, why sensitives must stop shrinking to be accepted. How much of your energy have you spent trying to be palatable to a world that was never designed to understand you? How many times have you felt the need to dilute your presence, mute your intuition, or laugh when you wanted to cry just to avoid being called too much? For those of us who are spiritually tuned in, there's an invisible tax we pay every time we choose acceptance over authenticity. And the cost is higher than we realize. It's not just emotional, it's energetic. Every time we shrink ourselves to fit into a space that's out of alignment, we pay in life force, in soul currency, in spiritual clarity. Being sensitive in a desensitized world is a radical experience. It's like trying to speak poetry in a room full of noise. You walk into spaces where the tempo feels off, and instead of honoring your inner knowing, you question yourself. You tell yourself to just be normal, to stop overreacting. But have you ever paused to ask yourself, normal by whose standards? Because the so-called normal of this world is often numbness, disconnection, and survival mode. And you weren't designed to survive, you were designed to awaken. Yet we've been taught to trade our truth for belonging. From a young age, we learn that there are parts of ourselves that are too intense, too emotional, too weird, so we cut them off, bury them, hide them beneath layers of performance. We laugh when we're uncomfortable. We agree when our soul says no. We keep quiet when our inner being is screaming. And little by little, we abandon ourselves not in one big moment, but in 1,000 tiny ways. Until one day we wake up and realize we don't even recognize the person we've become. And here's the paradox: people love authenticity, but only when it's convenient. They crave the wisdom, the calm, the depth of the sensitive soul, until it challenges their unhealed patterns, until it forces them to feel, until it reflects their own disconnection back to them. That's when the spiritual ones are pushed aside, misunderstood, labeled as too much or too complicated. But that rejection is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their readiness. And most people are not ready to meet themselves, let alone someone who mirrors them that clearly. So, if you've ever been ghosted for being honest, if you've ever been abandoned for setting boundaries, if you've ever been laughed at for crying when no one else did know this, it's not because you're broken. It's because you're awake. And the awakened soul is a disruptive presence in a sleeping world. You vibrate at a frequency that disturbs the status quo. And that is not something to apologize for. That is something to honor. But to live in that truth, you must stop paying the energetic cost of fitting in. You must stop betraying yourself to be loved. Because the moment you do, you lose touch with your own frequency. You start to confuse the noise of the world with your own inner voice. You start to feel anxious, drained, disconnected, and you don't even know why. That's the price of pretending. It's not just emotional exhaustion, it's spiritual erosion. And the longer you play that game, the more distant you become from your own essence. So what's the alternative? Radical self-acceptance. Not the kind that's trendy or performative, but the kind that says, I will no longer abandon my truth for temporary approval. The kind that walks away from people, places, and patterns that demand you be less than you are. The kind that honors your sensitivity as a compass, not a curse. That kind of self-acceptance is not easy. It might mean being alone. It might mean walking away from the familiar. But it will also mean reclaiming your energy, your clarity, your power. And here's the beautiful twist. When you stop shrinking, you start attracting. Not just people, but experiences, opportunities, connections that resonate with your actual frequency. You stop swimming upstream in relationships where you're not seen, and you start flowing with those who meet you in the deep. Because when you stand in your truth, you become a beacon for others who are doing the same. You become a tuning fork for authenticity, and others will feel it even if they don't know how to name it. So ask yourself how much of your life has been lived to be liked, and what would it feel like to stop and to let people misunderstand you, to let them mislabel you, and to let them walk away, and to trust that what's meant for your soul will never ask you to shrink to receive it. And that right there is freedom. And freedom is the natural state of a spiritually tuned-in being. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to amplify. You were never meant to go unnoticed. You were meant to disrupt, and you were never meant to be small. You were meant to shine so fiercely that others remember who they are just by being near you. So stop shrinking. The world doesn't need more of the same. It needs you fully, fiercely, and unapologetically awake. Sensitivity is not the end, it's the beginning of your spiritual leadership. There comes a moment on the path when you stop asking, "Why am I like this?" And you start asking, "What am I here to do with this?" That's the turning point. That's when your sensitivity stops being a source of confusion and becomes a foundation for purpose. You begin to realize that everything you felt so deeply, every time you've cried when others laughed, that every moment you've withdrawn because the energy felt off, those weren't detours. They were initiations, invitations, preparations, because you weren't sent here just to feel, you were sent here to lead, but not in the traditional, ego-driven way, but not as someone who demands attention or control, but as someone who leads by energy, by truth, by embodiment. You are a spiritual leader not because you asked for it, but because life gave you no other choice. Every wound you've carried, every betrayal you've endured, every moment you've questioned yourself, those were all chiseling the vessel. They were shaping you into someone who sees clearly, feels fully, and walks with a wisdom that goes beyond words. You were never meant to be like everyone else. That was the whole point. Your sensitivity is your initiation into a deeper kind of seeing, but a deeper kind of knowing. The kind that can only be accessed through the heart, through presence, through stillness. And the world is starving for that kind of leadership. We don't need more noise. We don't need more people performing strength while silently suffering. What we need are leaders who can feel, leaders who can hold space, leaders who can say, "It's okay to not be okay," and mean it from the marrow of their being. You've already been doing it, haven't you? You've been the one people come to when they're breaking down. You've been the one who can sit in silence with someone and somehow say more than words ever could. You've been the one who senses what others need without them having to ask. That's not random. That's not weakness. That's spiritual leadership in action. You've been training for this without even knowing it. But now it's time to step fully into it. Not just as the quiet one in the background. Not just as the empath who absorbs but never speaks. It's time to use your voice, to own your frequency, and to stop hiding behind the idea that you're just sensitive. No, you are tuned in, and with that comes responsibility. Not to save everyone, not to fix everything, but to be real, to show up with your whole self, and to model what it looks like to live from the soul, not the mask. Because when you do, something powerful happens. People begin to remember themselves around you. They begin to soften, to open, to reflect. Not because you told them to, but because your energy gave them permission. That's leadership. That's legacy. That's the ripple effect of a soul that refuses to abandon itself. So if you've been thinking your sensitivity disqualifies you from greatness, I want you to hear this clearly. It qualifies you. It calls you. It crowns you. Not in the way the world defines power, but in the only way that truly matters, through presence, through love, through truth. The journey doesn't end with feeling deeply. That's where it begins. The real work is learning how to stand in that depth without drowning. How to hold your boundary without closing your heart. How to walk into a room, not to take the spotlight, but to be the light. So I leave you with this. What if your sensitivity is not your edge, but your opening? What if it's not your weakness, but your calling? And what if everything you felt so deeply was never meant to hurt you, but to shape you into the leader the world has been waiting for? You are not too sensitive. You are not too much. You are exactly what this world needs. And now it's time to rise.